November 30th, 2021. Jennifer Crumbley sent this text to her son Ethan just 31 minutes after a gunman shot 4 of his teenage classmates dead. She had been at the school earlier that morning because Ethan's teacher discovered a disturbing drawing in his desk. While not an outright threat, several concerning phrases were written amidst illustrations of a gun and a bullet. This is the developing account of another familiar American tragedy that could have been prevented in so many different ways. And this is absolutely criminal. Tuesday morning, November 30th at Oxford High School in Michigan, located in a township of the same name, Oxford enrolled about 1,600 students last year, including 15-year-old Ethan Crumbley. Ethan Crumbley was born in 2006 in Detroit to parents James and Jennifer, and there were apparently signs of neglect early on. In the following audio segment, the Crumbley's neighbor at that time is being interviewed by a local radio show host, as she describes a kindergartner with little to no supervision.
He would just decide on his own bedtime, go to bed at 2 or 3 in the morning sometimes. If he was too tired for school, she would just call him in sick. He was watching horror, like pretty serious horror movies with his parents, even at 5 years old, things like Saw. He would play first-person shooter games like Call of Duty, and that was perfectly fine with them. We found out that they had guns in the home, and they weren't comfortable telling us how they were secured. And then we found out they just weren't secured. He was essentially being treated just like another resident in the house and not a child that needed structure and rules and protection. We became increasingly concerned. We never did allow our son at their house without us. And I was really kind of relieved when they moved away, but it was almost like he was being desensitized to feeling painful things or stressful situations.
As the shooter emerged from the bathroom and ambled down the crowded hallway, he discharged his weapon. Just as students began to realize the situation and ran for it, Ethan allegedly continued down the hallway at a methodical pace and shot inside classrooms and targeted students who were trapped. Even before the haze of fear and confusion faded, 4 students lay dead or dying. Tate Meyer was an honors student and a standout football player at Oxford. By all accounts, he died while trying to disarm the shooter. He was just 15 years old.
And there he was on Saturday, taking a photograph with his life in front of him, not knowing that just a few days later he'd be facing a gunman in his own hallways, a fellow student of his, pointing a gun in his direction, and him, by all accounts, trying to take that gun away from him, and that cost him his life.
Hannah St. Giuliano was the youngest victim at age 14. She wanted to play basketball at Oxford High School and was remembered by friends for her kind heart and silly personality.
Hannah was an amazing, sweet, kind soul.
A wonderful representative of humanity. What humanity should be. That we look out for each other and care for each other.
Justin Schilling was on the bowling and golf teams at school. He was a star student, a loving son, and his organs were used to save other people's lives that day. He was 17.
Every night that he was here, I would have his guest pull me aside and tell me how amazing of a job he did, how great he was with their kids.
Owner Matt Kirshner says Justin was one of 3 Oxford students working here. Justin even had his senior pictures taken inside the diner, where he shared his gift of gab and a contagious, bright smile.
Every time I saw Justin, he always found a way to make me smile and make me laugh.
Madison Baldwin was expected to graduate this year, At 17, she was the eldest of 4 siblings and had been accepted into several colleges.
Her grandmother says losing her so suddenly and so soon has devastated their family.
I'm just glad that we all got together for Thanksgiving. Just today, we're talking about all the things that are just planned for this coming weekend, and hundreds of thousands of people that have reached out already. That she was an important part of their life and touched them already.
The history of school shootings is a lengthy and unfortunately familiar one. The incident that comes to most people's minds is the 1999 Columbine High School massacre in Littleton, Colorado. During that event, students Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold wielded shotguns as they murdered 12 students and 1 teacher. But Columbine was by no means the first time students brought a gun to school. There have been so many of these incidents reported before 2000 that Wikipedia lists them in a table. The first school shooting we could find is probably earlier than you think. In 1840, a professor at the University of Virginia School of Law was shot to death by pupil Joseph Green Sims. He skipped bail in 1841 and died by suicide years later. A pre-Columbine shooting that may also come to mind occurred in 1998. 15-year-old Kip Kinkle slaughtered his parents with his father's handgun before driving to Thurston High School in Springfield, Oregon, where he murdered 4. Kinkle is currently serving his 111-year sentence at Oregon State Correctional Facility in Salem. The deadliest incident happened in 2018. Nicholas Cruz blasted his way down a hallway in Stoneman Douglas High School, killing 14 students and 3 staff members. Cruz was convicted, and a jury is scheduled to convene in February to decide whether or not he should be put to death. When Jennifer Crumbley sent that dubious text message to her son, amok had already run at Oxford High School. Police say her son walked with a deliberate pace down the halls with an intent to kill, aiming towards the heads and chests of his schoolmates. With each pull of the trigger, they say, Ethan made permanent decisions for unsuspecting subjects. Even before the life-changing chaos of this year, it appears all was not well in Kingdom Crumbley. James and Jennifer each had a small criminal history consisting of DUIs and petty crimes, resulting in misdemeanors. Jennifer wrote a bad check for a couple of $100. James was behind on child support for 2 different women.
Michelle Cobb says he left them strapped for cash and struggling to make ends meet.
He's a piece of He really is. The whole time of my son growing, my son is 18 years old now. And you know, I cried the moment he turned 18 because I thought all of this hell is over as far as dealing with my son's father.
They're also accused of spending long hours in the evenings tending to their horses. Court documents say that while they spent time with their animals, Ethan tortured the creatures for his own pleasure. Ethan was busy making plans, and his parents were too busy to notice. If the filings are correct, Ethan Crumbley had this massacre planned for some time, and obtaining access to the gun was the final hurdle he needed to clear in order to provoke havoc at the high school. That gun was a Sig Sauer 9mm handgun, and there were 3 15-round magazines. The weapon was purchased on Friday, November 26th, 4 days before it was used. Police contend he pulled the trigger over 30 times, meaning he had to reload at least once. 30 rounds were shot at or into living, breathing, innocent people. 4 lives were ended, 7 people were wounded, and countless spirits were crushed that day as the news trickled through family grapevines. On the day before the bloodbath, the troubled teen was allegedly spotted by a teacher browsing ammunition on his phone. Unfortunately, Ethan didn't need more ammo. He already had the firepower he needed to carry out his demented intentions. As the planned attack grew closer, Ethan grew more careless. The youngest Crumbley left a crumble of bread trails that could have been followed and stopped before they led to the halls of Oxford High. Cops say he'd been sending disturbing texts to his mom about his state of mind lately, and he was making dark and ominous posts on social media. The case is unusual in 2 aspects. First, Ethan is still alive, although it is difficult at the present time in this country to even agree on a definition of what factors constitute a school shooting. Over 3/4 of them conclude with the shooter losing their life, either by their own gun or those of the police. The second irregularity, which is even more remarkable, is that the shooter's parents were arrested and may be held accountable for their supposed roles in the slaughter. The state of Michigan contends that James and Jennifer knew, or should have known, that the events of November 30th, 2021 were foreseeable, that they could have intervened to prevent the killings. Prosecutor Karen McDonald boasts she has a mountain of digital evidence against the couple of Crumbleys, citing text messages between mother and son both before and after the evil unfolded. Just 24 hours before the loss of life, Ethan's parents were contacted by the school to say their son was observed searching for ammunition during class. Not only did the teacher's concerns go unaddressed, Mrs. Crumbley sent the following text. LOL, I'm not mad at you. You have to learn not to get caught. On the succeeding day, they were informed of the disturbing doodles discovered in Ethan's desk. On his math worksheet, there were small illustrations of a gun and a bullet alongside the phrases, "The thoughts won't stop," and "My life is useless." Just months ago, he began to tell his mom that he'd been hallucinating. Instead of taking action, they say Ethan was ignored. He wrote in his journal at one point, wondering why they hadn't even noticed he quit doing schoolwork. There was reportedly an agreement between the school and the parents that they would seek counseling for their son within 48 hours. Despite the school's request, the Crumbleys allegedly refused to leave with their son because they each had to go back to work. According to the school, Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley did not disclose the recent purchase of a firearm, or more importantly, Ethan Crumbley's ease of access to that weapon. Apparently, no adult present in the room that day searched the boy's bag, and he was sent back to class. It feels like something is missing from that story, but time will tell. Absolutely Criminal is honored and excited to appear on Crime and Justice by Mentor Lawyer. We will have access to his raw materials and information that will improve the quality of our show, and we have some big plans in store for you. If you're enjoying Absolutely Criminal and want to see more stories like this, please take a moment to hit thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and ring the notification bell. Now back to our story. The Crumbleys hired a well-known lawyer for themselves as their son languished in line at the public defender's office. Their high-priced attorney, Shannon Smith denies that her client was running. They were going to turn themselves in. But due to an unclear series of events involving logistic issues and phone tag, they just couldn't do it. The prosecution outlaid the shocking details in a bond reduction hearing on January 7th, with a damning timeline of events.
We need to talk about and address what Jennifer and James Crumbley did on November 30th, just hours after their son murdered children in a school. They started making plans.
They argued that upon receiving word of the shooting, James Crumbley raced home, and the Sig Sauer the family boasted about over the weekend was missing. James dialed 911 to report the theft and said his son may be the shooter. Simultaneously, Jennifer Crumbley texted a desperate plea to her son, "Don't do it." While it was initially unclear, we now know this text was sent after the shooting. She undoubtedly heard the news and likely suspected her son was the perpetrator. Knowing what the rest of us know about the usual final act of a school shooting, it is clear she was pleading for her son's life. When the Crumbley couple recongregated according to the state, they ran a few errands.
On November 30th at 4:42, defendant Jennifer Crumbley texted a contact she needed to sell her horse's stack. Upon information and belief in charges against their bank accounts, they drove to Lapeer and stayed the night in a hotel. At some point on this date, they also purchased a total of 4 cell phones. At an unknown time on that day, additionally, they drained their son's bank account, transferring $3,000 into their own account, leaving him with a balance of 99 cents. On December 1st, at around 9 a.m., they checked into a local hotel in Oakland County within miles from your court, Your Honor. At 11:23, more contacts were discussed about the sale of the horses for $5,000. On December 2nd, at 9 a.m., a withdrawal of $2,000 was made from their bank account. Text messages and testimony will reveal that the Crumbleys expected to be criminally charged the next day.
Were they saving up money for a good lawyer, or were they going to use it to go on the lam? Police contend they did the latter, while the Crumbleys claim they weren't running. They were hiding out because of the death threats they'd received, and they tried to turn themselves in. They just kept playing phone tag with the prosecutor's office, or something. Regardless, they now needed to come up with a plan, fearful they might be charged.
On December 3rd, at 9:30 in the morning, they checked out of that hotel. Before leaving, they abandoned their second car in the back parking lot with a plate facing back. At 10:05, Jennifer Crumbley responded to a text about finalizing the sale of the horses and indicated that they were awaiting charges announced at 12 o'clock. At approximately 10 o'clock, she called Andre Sikora and said they needed someplace to sit while decisions were made. They had nowhere else to go.
They talked to their friend Andrzej Sikora, who had heard about the murders and wanted to ask if they were okay. Sikora, owner of an art gallery in Detroit, says he was unaware of any charges against the couple, and when informed his friends feared for their lives, he granted them access to hide out in his studio. And there, the Crumbleys cowered for the night, and most of the next day, mixing vodka with orange juice they sent their friend out for. On the night of December 3rd, police received this 911 call from a citizen who spotted the couple's car.
Detroit 911, what is the address of the emergency?
1111 Bellevue Street.
Tell me exactly what happened.
The people who, the parents of the shooter that are running away, they're here.
Sir, I'm not sure what you're referring to. You have to be more specific.
No, okay, so the Oakland shooter, the kid, has the 2 parents that are on the run right now, and I just went to go park my car and switch it around at my office. I'm at my office, and there was a Kia that looked like their car, and I walked around and checked the license plate, and it's their car, and the woman is here.
The woman is where?
Sitting next to her car in the parking lot.
James and Jennifer Crumbley were found hiding in the basement of their friend's commercial building and were taken into custody. By the time the dastardly dust had settled, the Crumbleys had allegedly amassed $6,600 in cash, 4 burner phones, 10 credit cards, and gift cards, because they were on their way to turn themselves in. Each individual student woke up that morning with their own plans. They did go through their days as usual, except this time they were delivering their final words to their friends. They didn't know it yet, but they were busy texting their last jokes, waving final goodbyes to friends, and drawing their last breaths. What gave someone the right to conclude their stories? Above all else, Tate, Hannah, Justin, and Madison just wanted to go home to their families that night, families that would give anything for an alternate ending to this unimaginable day. Loved ones that are left to somehow pick up the pieces of their own broken lives, all because of a mentally unstable kid with access to a gun. Yet again.